Hi, welcome. My name is Dave Weiser. I'm a senior solution consultant at Tagunya, and I'm really glad to be here today to be presenting to you. First off, I want to thank the DynamicsCon community for voting in this session. I really appreciate that and really appreciate the opportunity to share with you on this subject of using custom report layouts. Just want to let you all know also that there's a chat in this session. So if you have any questions you want to ask, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll be answering them at the end of the session during the live Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's session we're going to be talking about is creating custom layouts within Business Central. A lot of the documents that you send out to your customers, like invoices, sales orders, purchase orders, you can customize them using Microsoft Word in addition to the normal RDLC layouts. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. So today, the main agenda topics are: one, we're going to talk about how to select reports and which version of report you want to use within Business Central. Two, we're going to talk about understanding how to create those custom layouts and how to use them. And then third, we're going to talk about how you can assign different layouts to different customers if you have a need to assign those different layouts to those customers. So let's get started with that. The first thing we're going to be talking about is assigning reports for different functions. And for that, I'm going to move over to Business Central. And there is basically three different places we need to go and take a look when we're assigning report versions to Business Central. The first place we're going to go is report selections in sales. We're going to specifically use sales today, but there are a lot of different report selection screens. We're going to go in here first, and I'll kind of explain what that usage is. So as you see on the screen here, we have a usage, and that usage right now says invoices. You can see for sales, we've got a whole bunch of different documents that can be used within Business Central, so that when you go and you print an invoice or you print a sales order or something like that, the system has to know what report you're using in order to make that print. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and select invoice. And at this point, we select what's the report ID of the report that you're going to be using within Business Central. So right now, we're going to be using report 1306, which is one of the built-in reports. So that's the first place that you're going to want to go to kind of take a look at these areas. The second place we want to go is the custom report layouts. Before I go there really quickly, I also want to show you the different report selections. So if we take a look at all of the different report selection screens, you can see that there's ones for sales, purchasing, warehouse, inventory, bank accounts. So the different functional areas, you can define those different report structures and which reports you want to use. So like I said, the second area we want to go to is custom report layouts, and that's where we're going to spend a majority of our time today. So as we click on custom report layouts and we want to search for report 1306 so we can focus on those, your system may or may not come with a number of predefined versions or custom layouts. So these may be here, they may not be here. If you want to create a new one though, a new custom layout, all you have to do is click on new and then new again. Tell the system what report ID you want to use and then what kind of layout you want to create. In this case, we're going to create both a Word layout and an RDLC layout, but we'll have to do them separately. So we'll create the Word layout. We'll click OK. You can see it created one up here. Actually, there's a couple of them, but I'm going to go ahead and rename this one. Once we get that up here, we're going to call that just DynamicsCon, just so that we know which one. And if I learned how to spell, that'd be even better. So we'll set that up. We'll also create another new version at the same time for report 1306. In this case, this one's going to be an RDLC layout, and we'll look at the two differences here in a minute. So create that one. You'll see we have also got that RDLC layout. We'll name that one DynamicsCon also. You can see over here in the type column, it identifies which type we're looking at. Now that you've created that version, you can actually export that to Word in this case. So we're going to highlight that line. We're going to come over to more options, and we're going to go to actions, and we're going to export that layout. When you export that layout, you can see down here on the bottom, the system is going to create a new Word document. So once that's done downloading, you go ahead and click and open up that Word document. It'll take just a second to open. So once we've opened that document, we'll bring it over here to our screen. We'll take a look at one page at a time. So you can see in here that this is very not user-friendly, not visually friendly, so we can change it around a little bit. Now, in order to make those changes within the Word document, you actually need to have a different menu item available to you. As you see up here, I've got all these menu options, but I need one that's called Developer. So if you come up anywhere on the menu and right-click and go to Customize Your Ribbon, you'll actually get this window come up, and over here on the right-hand side on these tabs, there should be a selection called Developer, which is unchecked. If you go ahead and check that and click OK, then you'll see this Developer option will open up for you. If you click on that, you'll have a button that'll say XML Mapping pane. Go ahead and click on that, and then this mapping pane shows up here. Over here on the right-hand side, you click the drop-down box and find the option that has the report ID, the 1306 in it. That one will have all of the objects that you need for this report. So go ahead and click on that. And now as you see over here, I can expand these different areas to see all of the fields that are available to be placed on this document. The nice thing about this now is that you can move things around, you can color things up. If you want to introduce logos or different things, you can really make your Word document what you want it to be. And so it's customized just for you, just for that specific customer. I'm going to go ahead and open up one that I've already created, just so that you can see some of the differences that we're going to be looking at. So here on the left-hand side is the regular document. And then over here on the right, I've made a number of changes. I've added some color, I've removed some fields that I didn't want. I added boxes and shading around other things. So just whatever you need to do from within the system to be able to make that look like you want it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and close those at this point. When you're done with that, come over once again to the custom report layout that you want. In this case, it's that DynamicsCon layout, the Word layout. Come back over to Actions. And in this case, I want to import a layout. System will ask you to choose what you want to use. In this case, we're going to use the DynamicsCon custom. We're going to go ahead and open that. And now that version has been loaded into the system under this DynamicsCon. So now if we go ahead and close this and we go to our posted, we'll go back to our main screen. And we'll go to our posted sales invoices. If we take a look at one of these and just go to print and preview, one of the things that you'll see is that this report doesn't look any different because there's still one more step that needs to be done. Even though we've created the layout, we need to tell the system to use the layout. So if we go back to our main screen, there is one more place that we need to go, and that is the report layout selection screen. So in the report selection screen, we told the system to use report 1306 for invoices, and then we created a number of custom layouts, but now here is where we tell the system for the standard invoices which of those versions we need to use. So if we click 1306, you'll see that in here right now for report 1306, the standard is the RDLC built-in layout. So what we want to do is edit this list. So in this case, we're going to want to come in, we're going to use a custom layout. And then when the custom layout is selected, the system brings up the list of all the custom layouts. So in this case, we want to use the DynamicsCon Word version. So that's now selected. We can go ahead and close this out. Now, if I go back to our posted sales documents, our posted sales invoices, We take a look at that same invoice this time as we print it up and preview it. You'll see that now we've brought in that new custom layout, and so the invoice looks exactly like we want it to look with that new custom layout. So it's a great improvement to be able to bring those documents in, because frankly, a lot of the canned ones are not really all that impressive, which is one of the reasons why certain versions of Business Central comes with those pre-canned custom layouts, so you can kind of choose the one that you want. Now, when we're looking at custom layouts, and we'll kind of go back over there, the other thing that we want to do is take a look at the RDLC layout, because maybe you don't want to use a check or a Word format, but you want to use an RDLC layout, and you can do that also with similar structure. So now if we go to the custom report layouts, we want to take once again a look at the 1306. And in this case, we're going to take a look at this RDLC layout, which is this first one. To export it, it's actually the very same system. So if we go to actions, we can export the layout. And in this case, you'll see it'll create an RDL format of a report, which is a different format. And in fact, you actually need to use Report Builder or Visual Studio or another program like that to actually use that. So in this case, I've got Report Builder open. So you can see as I open up that RDL document, I can bring it into Report Builder here, and now I can make whatever changes I need to. I'm not going to make a lot of changes here, just because you need to really have a good working knowledge of Report Builder or Visual Studio to be able to make those changes. So we're not going to go through that right now, but it's the same process. You can make whatever changes, add fields, delete fields, whatever you need to be able to make those changes, and then go ahead and re-import them back into the system. So we'll go ahead and close that for the time being, and we won't go to that. Now, it may be in certain instances that you want to create a custom layout from scratch, and you certainly can do that also. What I would advise when doing that, though, is to take like one of these built-in layouts, go ahead and export it, just like we did before. So we're going to go ahead and open up that document again. So now when you bring in that Word document and you open up, just like we did before, what you can do is basically select everything and delete everything, even whatever information is in the header and in footers, go ahead and delete it so that you've basically got a clean slate in order to work with. In this case, basically what you're doing then is you're needing to add the fields directly to this document. So I'll show you how to add a few fields, and then you can certainly take it from there and add a lot more fields to your report with this specific layout. This is really where this developer tab in the XML mapping pane comes into effect here, where it's really useful. So once again, open up the XML mapping pane, change this to the option that has the report ID in it. And then as we noted before, you have all of these fields that are available to you. Now I'll take a break here and just let you know that you're actually using the 1306 document. So all of the fields that are created in the report 1306 or whatever report you happen to be using are available to you here. So if there's additional fields that you need, additional calculated fields or something else, you'll need to make sure that the developer actually adds those to report 1306 or creates a new version for you to use. So just be aware of that. The customization through these custom layouts only allows you to use the fields that are already there. And so just be aware of that as you move through it. So if we do need to add fields in here, a lot of times you can add tables. So if we want to insert a table in here, because we want to add ship to and bill to, we can create a small table in here. And then we can start adding these fields. So I've got customer addresses, I've got sell to or ship to addresses or sell to information. So in this case, let's go ahead and add the customer information to that. So in order to add these fields over here into this custom layout, you actually have to click into the field or the location where you want to add it. So in this case, we'll hit this top box. Then come over to the pane, look at the item that you want to add. In this case, we're going to add customer address 1. Do a right click, insert controls, and we're going to insert plain text. Now, when you do that, you'll see that the system then adds that to that field. You can come down to the next one then and do the same thing with customer address 2, the same thing with customer address 3, and so forth, and just basically add all of those fields that you need to add. You can do the same thing with this side. If you want to bring the ship to address information, for example, click in there, click in the ship to address, and insert those controls. So once again, these are all fields from the report 1306, so that if when we use this information, it'll bring that in. Now, there's also on these invoices, obviously, a table. These fields are all single-use fields, basically, that you have a customer address that you're bringing in. But when you get down to the lines section, as you know, you've got 1 to as many lines as necessary on your invoice. So you've got a repeating function that you need to add. So in that case, for those rows, we want to be able to add down here another table. And in this case, we're going to add 2 lines and multiple fields on that. So we'll go ahead and create that table. Now, what we want to do, since we have repeating here, is on the area that we're going to be repeating. So we're going to put headers on this first line. On the second line is where we're going to add a number of repeating fields. So we're only going to need to set it up once, but we still want it to repeat. So what you do is you click over on the left-hand side, select the whole row. Then if we come down here to our line area, which is where all the line fields are going to be, if you point at the line heading and do a right click there and insert content, you'll see that there's now a repeating option. So if you click on that, the system will highlight that whole row and show you as repeating. Now you can go into each individual cell and bring in what you need to be able to bring in. So is it the type? Is it the quantity? Is the amount? Whatever field that you need to bring in that case, you can then add to that specific field. You can just bring that into the field just like you need it. So whatever format that you want to use it. Now you can also use formatting tools to color them, bold them, shift them to the left or center them, italicize, whatever functionality you need to be able to do. You can certainly add that to that document and make it really customize yours. Plus you can add logos and other things. Now, there are a few things as kind of the default or the pros and cons of using each approach. We're not going to save that at this point, so we'll head over to the PowerPoint really quick, because what I wanted to show you is some of the kind of the pros and cons of using these. But as we take a look at the using Word and RDLC, there's some definite advantages and disadvantages for using either one. So obviously with the Word layouts, there's more formatting options because we've all worked with Word. We all know how you can format text and boxes and tables. And so there's a lot more use for it. Plus, you don't really need to have that development skills. You don't have to know Report Builder or Visual Studio. A lot of people, in fact, most people in business know how to use Word already. So it's something that's very familiar. Plus, it gives a little bit more eye-pleasing layouts. So when you're talking about especially customer-facing documents, it really gives an opportunity for you to present to your clients documents that are really more friendly and more pleasing to the eye. One of the cons of using that is you can only deal with the data only. You can't do any adding or subtracting. There are some tools within Word if you're using tables to do sums, but I don't recommend those. Those don't really work well. So you're still really dealing with only the data that is coming from the report and how the report was built. So if you have questions about that, or like I said, you need to add additional fields, go ahead and talk to our developer and look at it and see what fields are there. If you just want to look at it, like I showed earlier, just export the format and look at all of the fields that are available to you on that specific format. So as we take a look at this document now and take a look at the different fields that are available, all of those fields for the report are available. And so as you scroll down this list, you'll be able to see whether it's a label, whether it's the actual data tables, all of these fields are available to be able to use within the system, even at the line or the totals, however the report was developed, you have those available to you. Similar, you have them also available in the RDLC format, but like I said, they have to be part of that report in order to use them. As far as the RDLC layout and some of the benefits there, it does offer a lot of functionality. Basically anything that you can write in Business Central into the report, you can put in the RDLC layout, a lot of conditional statements on whether you want to hide rows or hide values or show values or do different things are all possible within that layout. And so it gives you a little bit more flexibility. One, you don't need Word or you don't need Office or Word, but that's usually not a big issue because most businesses use it, but it's not required at that point. The layout functionality is fairly basic, so just be aware of that. You can't get a lot of fancy stuff like some of the Word formatting you can do, but at least it's available to you. And like I said, you have to have Visual Studio or SQL Report Builder to be able to use it and manipulate it. But other than that, you're basically doing the same thing with the system to be able to assign it. So if we were to go back to Business Central again, when we're looking at this RDLC layout, same kind of process. If you want to import it, just import the layout, find that revised RDL layout and bring that in. So it's really very easy to do that. And you can see you now have a number of formats that you can use within the system. So now the last thing we're going to talk about is really how to use these documents. Because one of the things that you want to be able to do when you use them specifically is assign them to specific customers potentially. You might have certain customers or vendors or other outside entities that want their report in a certain format. You know, maybe it's a vendor that wants their purchase orders formatted specifically, or a customer whose invoice needs to be in a certain format, in a certain appearance in order for them to use it. I don't recommend that you get really crazy with this because you could go down the path where you're giving all of your customers custom formats, and I don't recommend that at all. But you know, we all deal with some pretty forceful customers sometimes that may say your invoice has to look exactly like this. So we want those customers to have that ability. But we want all the other customers to use, we don't want to force everybody to use that format. So we'll talk for a few minutes on how we can require certain formats for certain customers. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and once again go back to where we identify or where we assign the specific layouts on a custom basis, and that's the report layout selection. So in that case, we're going to search once again for 1306. And you can see right now for report 1306, it's using that custom layout that we selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change that. And I'm going to change it back to the built-in RDLC layout. So that's the report that I'm going to use. So now as I come back here to the main screen and I go to my posted sales invoices, you can see I can go ahead and select that and do a preview on the print. And I'm actually seeing the normal non-fancy basic invoice that comes with Business Central, the RDLC layout. Now that may be a layout that you want to do for most customers, but we want to be able to assign certain customers other formats. So since that's the default right now, let's go ahead and close that. And for one of our customers, we want to assign this new custom format that we used. So in that case, I'm going to want to go to my customer table. So in the customer table, I'm going to open up customer 10,000. And there's a couple of different ways to get to it depending on how your system is. You want to get to an option called document layouts. So it's either here under navigate, or it could be under related customer document layouts. It's going to take you to the same spot. There's a lot of functionality built into this page, and this is only available in Business Central. So if you're going back into Nav, you're not going to have, in earlier versions of Nav, you're not going to have this available to you. But what you can do within this system is really twofold. One is you can say for invoices for this customer, I want to use, in this case, 1306, but if there was another invoice report that you had and you wanted to use, you can certainly use that also. You can also identify then, is there a custom layout that I want to use? So in this case, for the sales invoices for this customer, I want to select this Word layout that we were working with earlier. So here's the DynamicsCon Word layout. I'm going to go ahead and use that. The other thing that's nice here is you can include send to emails in this document also. So if you had, for example, an email address on the customer card that was the main email address for that customer, but for invoices, you wanted to go specifically someplace else, you can add an email address in here. And whenever you do the send invoices, it'll use that email address to be able to send to. And so that's a really good feature so that you don't have to change it on the main card all the time. But we're not going to set that up right now. That's a whole nother topic in dealing with emails. But we are going to set up the DynamicsCon custom layout for customer 10,000. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. We'll close our customer card. Go back to our main screen. In this case, we're going to go back to our posted sales invoices. So if we take a look at this first invoice again, this is for customer 30,000. So now if I print this and preview it, you can see I still have that standard base RDLC layout, kind of the boring version of this. But if I were to come down to any of these invoices for customer 10,000, and I go ahead and print preview those, you can see now this version for this customer is in our new format. And so like I mentioned, you can use that functionality to be able to assign different formats to different customers and specific emails also, but basically those custom designs. But I will give you that warning once again, is I wouldn't recommend that you do that a lot, just because the maintenance of those custom formats will get to be really difficult if you're dealing with a lot of different customers that have these specific reporting formats. But the option is available to you to be able to use that format. So as we're talking about these custom Word layouts, I just want to give you a little bit more information about the custom Word layouts that are available within Business Central, because it is a fairly new feature within just the last NAV 2016 is when it got introduced initially, and it perpetuates through all the BC functionality, but it really gives you a lot of opportunity to use, like I said, those custom layouts. As I mentioned, it provides better formatting for a more professional looking document. You know, as we looked at that, for example, at the base Business Central or that old NAV format of report to 1306, frankly, that's not something I would ever want to send to a customer. As you know, when you go to your customers or your vendors, any of those people that you're dealing with on the outside, you want to present a very personal appearance to them. And some of those base RDLC reports aren't that impressive. And so using the Word layouts gives you an opportunity to be more professional for your customers and your vendors, and they will certainly appreciate that a lot more. I just know that in dealing with business, appearance now is a big thing, and a lot of your customers are very into appearance and the way things look. Plus, you want to make it easy for them to find things, easy for them to see things. So making the fonts bigger, using colors to highlight things and bring things out are going to be really important to your customers and therefore to you also. This third bullet point, the custom layouts obviously are more familiar to more users. Everybody uses Word nowadays or some kind of word processing where not everybody uses RDLC. In fact, a lot of people get scared when they're looking at RDLC, because it can be very finicky and you want to make sure you get things in the right spot. So it can be very difficult to use. But like I said, everybody uses Word format. So that's something that can be certainly added. Users can add text or graphics without adding to the report objects. So within RDLC, you actually have to have an object to add. So if it's the column title, you bring in column titles in, or you have to have special boxes that you can add text to. But within Word, you can just add those words. So when we brought up that Word document earlier, where we were creating the new Word document and we had that header row, you can just type right into that. You don't have to add any fields or any fields from the RDLC layout. You can just go ahead and type into that. It also is helpful. We had one client that wanted to add little messages on the bottom of their invoices. So depending on the season, it might be, Merry Christmas, Happy, or, Happy New Year, or, different promotional information or things that they wanted to be able to add and change. Also terms and conditions or little phrases. Within a Word document, it was very easy to bring up the Word document, make the change right on the document, and then re-import it into Business Central, and it's done. You don't have to call up your partner, or if you've got a developer on staff, call them and say, I want to make changes to the verbiage, especially if you misspelled something. If you misspell something and you got to go back to a developer to fix it, that's not really a good use of time. With the Word formats, you can use that, or your users can make those changes very quickly to add the additional comments or to fix errors in those documents. So it's really a great feature to be able to use it. Like I said, there are some limitations where you can't do a lot of grouping or aggregating or filtering for so on within the Word documents. But frankly, in my experience, when I've been dealing with these, there really hasn't been a call for that too much. If there is, then certainly you can use an RDLC layout, or create new fields to be able to go into the document, but there hasn't been a really big call for that, at least in my experience in working with these layouts. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about these custom Word layouts. They are a great feature, and it's a great way to basically be able to play around with that. So you're not making any changes. You can export that document to Word and then play with to your heart's delight and make sure it's looking exactly the way you want it to look. So before re-importing it. So it really gives you an opportunity to work with that. So I recommend that you go ahead and do that. Just pick one, like the 1306 sales invoice or the sales order, bring those in and be able and work with them right now in Word. Just remember to uncover that developer icon on the top menu so that you can get the tools that are available there. So just a reminder to put your questions in the chat, and I'll be here to answer them. But I really appreciate you once again for attending, and I hope you found a lot of value throughout all of these DynamicsCon sessions, and specifically this one, with giving you the tools that you can use to use Business Central better and to present a good professional appearance to your customers. So thank you for attending.
Hi and welcome. Thank you for attending my session. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate those of you who voted my session up. Got a number of questions in the chat that I want to go ahead and answer live in this session. We have plenty of time, so if you have a question, go ahead and include it. One of the questions from Sean earlier was that in the report selection layout window, they're seeing multiple object IDs. Depending on the window, you should only see one. If you're seeing more, then that might be an issue, and if you want to reach out, we can figure that out. The custom layouts, there will be multiple layouts. I mean, you can have as many custom layouts of the reports as you need, but really, when you go to that report layout selection screen, you should only see one, because what you're basically telling Business Central is for this report ID, I want to use this format, whether it's a custom format or one of the built-in formats. You're telling it which one to use, so you should only see one. But like I said, in the custom layouts, you will have multiples, because you can have pretty much as many of those as you need. There was a question that came in when I was doing the RDLC, where I was kind of getting rid of a lot of the address information, or moving it from the header to the body. Actually, not the RDLC, the Word layout. That's really just personal preference, what you want your invoices to look like, especially if your invoice is going to be multiple pages. What do you want to show up on each of those pages, whether you want the header information or some of the header information to show up on every page. You want to make sure that that's included in the header section. If not, it can be left in the body. So it just really depends on what you want your invoices or your documents, not necessarily invoices, but what you want your documents to look like. Does it matter if you add the repeater before you put in the fields or not? I honestly have not tried to do it after, but there shouldn't be any reason that it wouldn't work. It just needs to have that repeater on the line that you do it. So go ahead and try it out, and I'll try it out too. That was a good suggestion, but like I said, I've actually never tried that, but I will now. Is there anything available for generating timesheet reports? Not for a client to sign off on, not that I'm aware of. So we'll have to look into that further to see if that ability exists, especially if the client needs to sign off on it and you need to return back on it, at least not through this functionality. Excuse me. One of the follow-up questions, will the XML mapping in Word detect extra fields added by enhancements? And the answer to that is yes, it should. Through your extensions, it should allow that. You may need to create a specific RDLC format within the extension that includes those fields, because just like the Word format and the RDLC format can only work with the fields that are included in the report. So there may be some custom development, whether it's Cal in some of the older, earlier versions of Business Central, where you could still use Cal, or an AL extensions. You'll still need to make sure that all those fields that you intend to include in the report have been added to the report so that you can use them within that report. What would you do if there's different layouts depending on the language they speak? If you have the ability, if you're just talking about a different format, then you can modify that format and put in whatever language you need to. If you're looking for a specific trigger, so that when on a customer, for example, you set their language to something other than the base language and you want it to automatically pick up that new format, I'm not aware of that functionality. I don't think that exists. But if you want to create a foreign language format, whether it's Word or RDLC, for example, you can assign that format to the specific customer that uses that language, and they should be able to pick that up. For the email option, can you have multiple emails? Yes, you can have multiple emails in there, and that's actually a really nice feature because you can specify different emails for different document types. So as you know, for example, on a customer, you can have an email, but you may be sending emails for sales quotes to one place, sales order confirmations may go someplace different. The sales invoices and sales credit memos may go straight to the accounting department, and on the purchasing side, you may have different recipients for different documents. So within that report document layout, not the layout, but in that screen, you can specify different email addresses for those various documents to go. It's a great enhancement, and I've used that a lot with a lot of the clients that we work with. Do you recommend maintaining Word and RDLC layouts to keep them in sync? Personally, no, I don't recommend that. If you're going to stay with one, Word is actually a really good way to move, and so I would just use Word formats. There's really no reason to keep them in sync. One of the reasons you'll have custom layouts is so that you can customize that document to look like you need it to look. And I don't think there's really any need for doing that. How do you change the email body when exporting the layouts? This is body text and greeting text. That goes into the report itself as to where you have where you're specifying that text. Generally for me, if I'm using a Word text, I would pretty much remove that and just go into the Word layout and add whatever you need to. As I showed you, it's very easy to export and re-import different layouts. So if you had a layout for, you know, the holiday season where you wanted to put in happy holidays or other kind of information, you can certainly add that and upload that format so that it had that format. And then, you know, the changing seasons, you can change those formats. The other thing that I really like about it is it's very easy to be able to change some of those comments that are maybe at the bottom of your invoices. So if, for example, now without using custom layouts, if, you know, somebody, and I love developers, but maybe somewhere a developer misspelled a word, or you need just to change the language, you know, in the past you needed to go back to that developer and have them change, you know, go through the expense and the issue of changing that text. Or now with a custom layout, if you're texting or typing that into your Word layout, you can just export the layout, open that up, change whatever you need to, misspellings or different wording, or, you know, different bank codes if you're adding your banking information, whatever you need to, re-import that and you're done. It only takes just a few seconds, if not maybe a minute or so, to make those changes, and it's really nice to be able to do that. How do you change the email bodies? The email bodies also are included in that is in the Word format. You can specify a specific format that is just to be able to use for the Word bodies or for the email bodies. So what you would do is create a specific format, Word format specifically, where you would condense everything. So it may not be the full-blown invoice. It may just be a condensed invoice that you want to include in the email body. And then when you've saved and imported that format, don't make that the default format for your invoices. But when you use the document layouts for the customers or set it for email, you can specify in the email as to what format to use for email bodies. And that way you can still send them the PDF basically with the full looking invoice, but then in the body of the invoice it may say, you know, attached is invoice number 1234 for your sales order X123 for the amount of $15,000. And so it can have that automatically generated in the body and then attach the full invoice to it. So, you know, those features are there, and it's really nice. There isn't a document. Is there, one question, is there a document layout to support multiple bank check layouts? I have not used this for bank check layouts. That's a whole nother animal, especially if you're including the Micker line at the bottom. So I don't think that one is there to be able to do that. How do you manage changes from Microsoft to standard layouts by your cumulative updates? That's pretty much just like everything else. You just kind of got to watch and see what changes are being made. Test those during the upgrade process to make sure that the formats are still looking like they did before. You can do some code compares so that if you want to see what enhancements the new layout made, you can. But really, it's going to be one of those things like every other thing you want to test during an upgrade, is to make sure the new formats will continue to work. Usually what you're looking out for is any changes that Microsoft made. If you're adding extensions to it and using those fields, those tend to be okay, but usually they're not changing a lot of the standard reports a lot that require you to make some major changes there. Why we can't let's see. I got a question for someday from one of my clients asking why we can't add all the fields to a single text box one after another in RDLC layout. I don't really have a specific answer to that. I'm not sure there. Yeah, if you want to reach out to me later, we can chat about it. But usually within, I know in Word layout, the repeating function, just because you have multiple lines, it makes it difficult. Yeah, I haven't tested a single text box and added that. I don't have a specific answer to that, Scott. Sorry about that. So, let's see, any questions? How do you handle issued reminders in Word? If there's a specific document for reminders, you should be able to modify that in Word, but I haven't seen that. Not all of the documents you can do within Word, but I can take a look at that also. And then thanks, Shannon, for the, there are still some custom jet reports that you can run and different things that you can do. Do you have to have Word on the client to run the reports? And you don't need to. You won't need to have it running on the tablets to run it or to open it. It should be able to generate that. And we talked about the vendor language. Basically, you would have to include that in the specific custom layout if you wanted to be able to use that. The bulk sending of invoices, depending on how you want to do that, we have had some customers that have done that from the posted invoice screen. Is just select a whole bunch of them and then hit send. And there has been some success in being able to bulk send those if you send select multiples at the same time. So, conditional formatting, printing on the bottom, calculations. Yeah, so that's one of the downfalls of the Word formatting. The question was how much advanced functionality is available today with either of the options presented here, like conditional formatting, printing on the bottom, running totals. Depending on what you want to do, that's an area where RDLC may be a better version to use than Word layouts. So you might try it with either conditional formatting or conditional printing is better suited more in the RDLC range than in the Word range. Printing on the bottom, you can use the Word footers to be able to do that. So just depending on what you're wanting to do, it may force you into one of those formats. You included running totals, that kind of thing would be better suited for an RDLC format than for a Word layout. So the way I like to look at it is Word gives you a nice looking document, but if you're looking for some functionality on what's printing, how it's printed, totaling, that kind of thing, the RDLC may be the better solution for you. So if there's no other questions, we'll leave the chat open for a minute, but I've really appreciated this. This is, a great tool to use. I will just warn you, the one thing is to not get too carried away with the custom formats, and at least the number of custom formats. Like me, you've all dealt with customers that, want their documents in a very specific way. And once they find out you can do that, they'll, well, yeah, let's send them this format and do that kind of thing. So just be aware of that. But I really appreciate all of your comments, all of your questions, and hope you have a great day here at DynamicsCon and with the next couple of days. What a great event this is to be able to share this information with you. So I really appreciate that. And at that, we'll kind of turn it over to, if there's no other questions, then we'll go ahead and end early and let you go get some coffee before your next session. So I really appreciate that. Have a good day.